In court, my father stood up and declared cold as ice, "Those Miami Beach mansions are ours. She doesn't deserve a single cent." My stepmother nodded with that fake smile she's perfected for red carpet clients. My half-brother, the hotshot real estate attorney, smirked like he'd already won. The judge opened the thick envelope I'd just handed him. He flipped a few pages, stopped, looked straight at them. A short metallic laugh escaped his throat, sharp enough to cut glass. "Well, so you people really don't know anything at all?" The room froze. Cole's smirk died on his face. Pamela's manicured nails dug into the wooden rail until her knuckles went white. Dad's jaw locked so tight I thought it might crack. "And me, I'm Sawyer Ellison, former Coast Guard rescue helicopter pilot, now running a luxury yacht charter company out of Miami." Standing there in that freezing courtroom, I finally felt the air reach my lungs again after almost a year of being suffocated by my own family. That single laugh from the judge. It wasn't joy. It was the sound of every lie they'd built collapsing in real time. But before that moment, before their empire of greed turned to dust in front of everyone, there was the phone call I never wanted, the funeral I almost missed, and the forged papers that tried to erase me from the only home I ever had. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who share your blood, if you know what it feels like to fight your own family for what's rightfully yours, stay until the very end. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from, and tell me, have you ever had to take your own parents to court? Because this one's going to hit hard. The sun was bleeding orange across the water when my phone started vibrating like it was trying to jump out of my life jacket. I was at the helm of an 80-foot Sunseeker bringing a party of crypto billionaires back from Fort Lauderdale to Biscayne Bay. I ignored the first 3 calls. By the 5th, I handed the wheel to my first mate and stepped into the salon. "Jackson Memorial Hospital. Miss Ellison." "This is Dr. Patel. I'm sorry your grandmother, Beatrice Ellison, suffered a massive stroke this morning. She didn't make it." The words hit harder than any wave I'd ever taken in a SR hoist. I told the guests the charter was over, paid the crew triple to handle the tip, and pointed the bow south at full throttle. 4 hours later, I was tying up at the private dock in Key Biscayne, still in my salt-stiff uniform. The house was dark except for the floodlights on the palm trees. The funeral had already happened. Closed casket, invitation only that morning. Douglas, my father, stood on the terrace in a black linen shirt sipping something amber. Pamela, his second wife, air-kissed both my cheeks like we were at a yacht club brunch. Not a single tear between them. I asked why no one called me sooner. Douglas shrugged. "You're always offshore, Sawyer. We didn't want to pull you away from a paying charter." Pamela added, soft and sweet, "Everything's taken care of, honey. The will, the properties, all of it. You don't have to worry about a thing. Just go back to your boats." That sentence lodged in my throat like a fishhook. I walked through the main villa anyway. The air smelled like Beatrice's gardenias and the faint bleach Pamela used to erase every trace of her. Pictures of me in my Coast Guard flight suit still hung in the hallway, but the frames had been moved lower like someone wanted them out of prime sightlines. In the kitchen, the fridge was covered with new magnets, South Beach clubs, Botox clinics, nothing from the Keys or the base in Clearwater where I'd been stationed. My grandmother's handwriting once on every grocery list was gone. Cole showed up an hour later, rolling in wearing Tom Ford and a Rolex Submariner I'd never seen before. My half-brother. Same father, different mother, different everything. We'd never been close. He was already in law school when I was learning to dog paddle in this very pool. He gave me the half-hug that never quite lands. "Rough day, huh, little sis?" Then casual as ordering espresso. "Good thing Mom and Dad have everything under control. Grandma signed new powers of attorney a while back. The 5 houses are safe with us. I asked to see the documents." He laughed short, practiced. "They're already filed downtown. You don't need to stress about legal stuff. That's what I do for a living." Remember, I stood there in my still damp deck shoes while they talked over me about streamlining the portfolio and maximizing rental yields. Pamela kept touching my arm like we were best friends, saying how proud Beatrice would be that the family was finally working as a team. By midnight they were gone, taillights disappearing through the gate. I slept in the guest cottage that used to be my bedroom growing up. The sheets still smelled like the same detergent Beatrice had used for 30 years. I lay awake listening to the Atlantic on the other side of the dunes and felt the first real crack in the wall I'd built around my family. Because something Pamela said kept looping in my head. We've taken care of all the paperwork. Taken care of. Not Beatrice wanted. Not. Here's what we found. Taken care of. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles and made a promise to the dark. I wasn't leaving Miami until I saw every single page they were talking about. The security gate at Fisher Island slid open before I even reached the intercom. That should have been my first warning. I parked the rented Jeep in the circular drive of the main house, the one with the infinity pool that drops straight into the Atlantic. The front door was already cracked. Inside, the air conditioning hit like a meat locker. The three of them were waiting in the formal living room, arranged like a corporate board meeting. Douglas sat in Beatrice's old wingback legs crossed, sipping coffee from a cup that used to be hers. Pamela stood behind him, one hand resting on his shoulder, diamonds flashing every time she breathed. Cole leaned against the marble fireplace, sleeves rolled up just enough to show the Patek Philippe I knew cost more than most people's houses. On the coffee table sat a thick manila folder. Cole spoke first, voice flat and professional. Grandma executed a durable power of attorney 18 months ago. It gives Dad full authority over all 5 properties, effective immediately upon incapacity or death. He slid the top document across the glass. Beatrice's signature stared up at me, shaky but unmistakable, notarized seal, still shiny. I reached for it. Cole pulled the folder back an inch. Copies are filed with the clerk downtown. You don't need the originals. Pamela chimed in, syrupy. Sawyer, honey, your grandmother wanted the family to stay united. She knew you're never here. This just makes everything simpler. Douglas finally looked at me. You live on boats, kid. Managing 8-figure real estate isn't your world. Let us handle it. I asked the only question that mattered. When exactly did she sign this? Cole didn't blink. February 14th. I flew down myself. She was lucid, happy to get it done. We even had lunch at Joe's Stone Crab after. February 14th. The same week Beatrice called me crying because she couldn't remember where she parked her car at the grocery store. The same week she asked me 3 times in one FaceTime if I was still stationed in Alaska. I pulled out my phone, started taking photos of every page he let me see. Cole's hand landed on the folder. That's enough. 2 security guards appeared in the archway, big guys in navy blazers, earpieces, the kind Fisher Island hires when residents don't want a scene. Pamela must have texted them the second my Jeep hit the bridge. Douglas stood. You're tired. You just lost your grandmother. Go back to the cottage, sleep it off. We'll talk when you're rational. I kept snapping pictures until one of the guards stepped between me and the table. Ma'am, time to leave the property. Cole added, almost gentle. You're a guest here now, Sawyer. Guests don't get to demand files. I backed toward the door, phone still raised. The last shot I got was Pamela smiling like she'd just won an Oscar for Best Supporting Stepmother. Outside, the guards walked me all the way to the Jeep. One of them held the door open like a valet on steroids. The gate closed behind me before I even turned the engine over. I sat in the ferry line staring at the blurry photos on my screen. The notary's stamp looked real. The signature looked real. But something was off, the ink too uniform, the pressure too even. I zoomed in until the pixels hurt my eyes. By the time the ferry docked back on the mainland, I'd already forwarded every image to myself twice and uploaded them to 3 different cloud drives. I wasn't sure what I was looking at yet. But I knew one thing for certain. They'd rehearsed this moment. Every word, every gesture, every fake sympathetic smile. They'd planned to cut me out long before Beatrice took her last breath. I drove south toward Key Biscayne with the windows down and the salt air whipping my face hard enough to sting. The 5 mansions weren't just buildings. They were the only proof that someone in my blood had ever chosen me first. And they thought a single piece of paper could erase that. They were wrong. The gate to mansion number 5 still had the old brass key under the planter where Beatrice always left it for me. I let myself in, dropped my duffel on the terrazzo floor, and stood in the dark living room that smelled exactly like her gardenia's salt and the faint cedar from the hope chest she kept at the foot of the bed. I hadn't even turned on the lights when 3 soft knocks came from the side entrance. Hank Callahan stood on the lanai holding a tiny plastic bag with a single black USB drive inside. 70-something ex-DEA buzzcut gone silver arms still roped from decades of raiding doors in Colombia. He'd rented number 4 for 12 years and had become Beatrice's unofficial bodyguard after her first fall. She made me swear, he said, voice low, almost swallowed by the surf. Only hand this to Sawyer if something happened to her. Said you'd know what to do. I took the drive like it was burning. When did she give it to you? 3 months ago. Right after she got out of the hospital the last time. She was scared, kid. Real scared. He glanced over both shoulders, then disappeared back into the palms without another word. I locked every deadbolt, pulled the hurricane shutters halfway, and sat on the living room rug with my laptop. 1 file, no name, just a date from last spring. I clicked play. Beatrice's voice filled the room, thin, trembling, but sharp as ever. Sawyer, my girl, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. Listen close. After May of last year, I never signed a single paper giving anyone power of attorney. Not Douglas, not Pamela, and sure as hell, not Cole. I caught him poking around my office one night with a scanner and a stack of my old checks. He told me it was for tax season. I knew better. Everything, the 5 houses, the accounts, the trust is yours. I redid the will with a new lawyer, Valentina Morales in Brickell. She's honest. She'll have the original. Don't trust anything dated after that May. They'll try to tell you I lost my mind. I didn't. I was protecting you the only way I knew how. I love you bigger than the ocean, baby. Come home and fight for it. The recording ended with the sound of her coughing, then a soft click. I played it again. And again. Each time her words carved deeper into my ribs. At some point I ended up on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, tears running hot down my neck. Not sad tears. Rage tears. The kind that taste like metal. I opened the drive properties. The file had been created the same week she'd called me from the hospital asking why her bank statement looked funny. The same week Cole had posted Instagram stories from South Beach with captions about closing big estate deals. I made 4 encrypted backups, emailed one to myself under the subject line Beatrice, do not delete, and hid the original drive inside the hollow leg of the dining table. Exactly where she used to hide my Christmas presents when I was little. Then I sat on the balcony until the sky turned the color of a fresh bruise. Hank's house stayed dark, but I saw the red glow of his cigar moving back and forth on his patio. He was watching over me the way he'd watched over her. I wasn't a lawyer. I wasn't rich. I didn't have a fancy office downtown, but I had her voice in my pocket, clear as a flare in the night, telling me exactly who the enemy was. And for the first time since the phone call on the yacht, I knew I wasn't fighting blind anymore. The Rickenbacker Causeway was still quiet when I crossed into Brickell, the high-rises glowing gold against the dawn. Valentina Morales's office sat on the 22nd floor of a glass tower that looked straight down Biscayne Bay. She buzzed me in before I even knocked. Valentina was already at her desk, sleeves rolled, Cuban coffee steaming beside a stack of folders taller than my forearm. 42, Harvard Law, former Miami-Dade prosecutor who'd walked away after too many plea deals for rich kids. Beatrice had found her through a retired judge they both trusted. She didn't waste time on small talk. Play it again. I plugged the drive into her MacBook. Beatrice's voice filled the room for the fourth time that morning. When it ended, Valentina leaned back, eyes narrowed. Timestamp on the file is clean. Metadata untouched. That alone kills any claim of recent fabrication. She opened the first folder. I pulled every notarized document Cole Ellison filed in the last 24 months. Guess whose name is on the durable power of attorney as preparer, your half-brother? February 14th. Same day he claims he took Grandma to Joe's for lunch. She slid an enlarged scan across the desk. Beatrice's signature looked perfect, too perfect. Sent it to the best forensic document examiner in Florida, retired FBI out of Quantico. His report came back yesterday. She tapped a highlighted line. No pen pressure variation, 0 microtremor. The stroke paths are vector-generated, probably lifted from old greeting cards and rebuilt in Adobe Illustrator. In layman terms, it's a $5 million Photoshop job. My pulse hammered in my ears. Valentina wasn't finished. While that was processing, I went hunting for the real will. Beatrice told me once she never used the big downtown notary offices because they all play golf with Cole. So I checked every small shop from South Miami to the Gables. She opened a second folder and placed a single document in front of me like a winning poker hand. Coral Gables Notary on Salcedo Street. Owner is a 78-year-old Cuban lady who's known your grandmother since 1974. Beatrice walked in alone, perfectly lucid 3 weeks before the stroke. Signed a new revocable trust and pour-over will. Everything, the 5 mansions, the brokerage accounts, the mineral rights in Texas she never told anyone about, goes outright to Sawyer Ellison. No contingencies, no co-trustees, no Cole, no Douglas, no Pamela. I stared at the signature. Shaky from age, but 100% real. The same loop on the Y, the same cross on the T I'd watched her make on birthday cards my whole life. Valentina continued, voice calm, lethal. The old will from 12 years ago had a no contest clause. This new one doesn't because Beatrice knew they'd fight dirty. She also added a specific clause. Any beneficiary who challenges the trust pays all legal fees for both sides and forfeits everything. In Florida, that's enforceable as hell. She pulled out a third folder, thicker, sealed with red evidence tape. Already filed emergency petition to freeze all 5 titles pending probate challenge. Judge signed the order an hour ago. They can't sell, refinance, or even list the properties until this is resolved. Then she leaned forward, elbows on the desk. Here's the nuclear option. Florida Statute 825.103. Exploitation of an elderly person or disabled adult financial over $100,000 is a first-degree felony. Add forgery of a legal instrument, notary fraud, possible identity theft. We're looking at mandatory prison time. I can refer this to the state attorney today. Or we go civil first, bleed them dry, then hand the evidence over, gift-wrapped. I traced my finger over Beatrice's real signature. She knew exactly what they were planning. Valentina nodded. She wasn't confused. She was 10 moves ahead. She poured me a cortadito from the thermos, pushed it across. Your call, Sawyer. We can file the quiet probate and try to settle, or we walk into court with both barrels and watch them burn. I drank the coffee in one swallow. It tasted like war. Both barrels, I said. Valentina smiled for the first time all morning, sharp, satisfied, the smile of a prosecutor who never lost the taste for it. Then let's go ruin their year. The black Tahoe with tinted windows started showing up at the marina the same week Valentina filed the emergency freeze. Same car, different parking spot every day. I'd see it in my rear view on the way to the gym, catch it idling across from the coffee shop on Commodore Plaza. Amateur hour, but the message was clear. Then the text came from a blocked number at 2:14 a.m. Drop the suit. Miami isn't big enough for both of us anymore. See, I screenshot it, forwarded it straight to Valentina, and set up a meeting. I chose the place, the fuel dock at Dinner Key Marina after closing. Floodlights off, only the red and green running lights of the yachts, and the low hum of the generators. Cole arrived alone in his white Porsche 911 shoes, shining like he'd never stepped on teak in his life. He walked the dock like he owned it, hands in his pockets. That same smirk he wore the day he slid the fake power of attorney across the table. "Little sister," he started, voice-dripping South Beach condescension. "You're punching way above your weight class. Grandma was sick. She signed what I put in front of her. End of story." I stayed leaning against the fuel pump, arms crossed. "She told me on tape she never signed anything after May." "Wanna hear it?" His smile flickered. "That recording proves nothing. Old lady rambling." I hit play on my phone anyway. Beatrice's voice carried over the water, clear and steady, naming him, naming the scanner, naming the lie. I watched the blood drain from his face under the dock lights, watched the smirk die like a fish on the planks. When it finished, he recovered fast. Deepfake technology is impressive these days. A judge will laugh that out of court. I stepped closer. "Then explain the forensic report that says your power of attorney was drawn with a mouse, not a pen. Explain the real will that cuts you out completely. Explain why you were scanning her old birthday cards at 3 a.m. He opened his mouth, closed. It glanced toward the parking lot like he was calculating an exit. That's when Hank stepped out from behind the bait shop, moving quiet for a big man. He stopped 10 feet away, hands empty, voice gravel and authority. "Evening, counselor." Cole's head snapped around. Hank continued calm. "I already gave Ms. Morales my sworn affidavit. I watched you let yourself into the main house with a bump key at 3:12 a.m., exactly 4 weeks before Beatrice died. Security camera on my dock caught your license plate. I still have the file." Cole's composure cracked wide open. For the first time in my life, I saw real fear on his face, raw animal. "You're both bluffing," he spat, but his voice shook. Hank just smiled the way only an ex-DEA agent can. "Try me in court, son. I've put bigger fish than you in federal prison for a lot less." Cole took one step back, another, then turned and walked fast to his car. The Porsche roared out of the lot, tires squealing on the wet pavement. Hank waited until the taillights vanished. "He'll lawyer up by sunrise. Probably try to buy me off next." "Let him try," I said. Hank nodded once. "I spent 25 years chasing cartel money. Your brother's an amateur playing with matches. He just lit the fuse himself." We stood there while the tide slapped against the pilings. Somewhere out in the bay, a buoy clanged, steady, relentless. Cole had shown his hand. Now the whole table was mine. The courtroom on the 6th floor of the Miami-Dade County Courthouse smelled of polished oak and burnt coffee. Every seat was taken. Local reporters, law students, even a few retired judges who'd heard rumors this one was going to be ugly. I walked in wearing the same charcoal suit I'd worn for Coast Guard promotion boards. Valentina was already at the plaintiff's table, 3 bankers' boxes stacked like artillery. Across the aisle sat Cole in a navy brioni, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitch. Douglas and Pamela flanked him, looking smaller than I remembered, like the money they'd counted on had already started leaking out of their clothes. Judge Dominic Rossi took the bench at exactly 9:63, former Marine JAG, 0 patience for rich kid nonsense. He didn't bother with opening pleasantries. "Counsel, I've read the motions. This is a probate challenge with allegations of felony fraud. Let's move." Valentina stood first. "Your Honor, petitioner presents 3 independent categories of irrefutable evidence." She called Dr. Leonard Park, retired FBI Question Documents Unit, to the stand. Under direct, he walked the court through 42 pages of forensic analysis. No ink, no pen lifts, no natural tremor vector lines visible at 400% magnification. In 31 years, he concluded, I have never seen a cleaner digital forgery. Cole's attorney objected, called it inconclusive. Judge Rossi shut him down with a look. Next, Valentina played the recording. Beatrice's voice rang through the speakers, naming Cole, naming the scanner, naming the exact lie. The timestamp glowed on the screen behind her, unalterable, unbreakable. Pamela started crying, quiet, theatrical tears. Douglas stared at the table like it might save him. Valentina's third witness was Hank Callahan. He took the oath in a voice that still carried jungle nights and safe houses. He described the bump key, the 3:12 a.m. entry the license plate captured on his private security system. Then he looked straight at Cole. "I swore to protect that woman. I failed once. I won't fail her granddaughter." The defense tried to paint Hank as a disgruntled tenant. Valentina shredded them on cross with his 25-year service record and 4 commendations for bravery. Closing came fast. Valentina spoke last. "This is not a complicated case. It is a greedy one." The respondents forged a dying woman's signature, attempted to steal $42 million in real property, and did it while she was still breathing. The evidence is overwhelming. The law is clear. Return the estates to their rightful owner, and let the criminal system do the rest. Judge Rossi removed his glasses, opened the thick evidence binder one final time, and flipped to the forensic report. He paused long enough for the entire room to stop breathing. Then he looked up straight at Douglas, Pamela, and Cole, and let out a short, icy laugh that sliced through the silence like a blade. "Well, so you people really don't know anything at all." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Order as follows. The February 14th durable power of attorney is declared void ab initio for fraud in the execution. All 5 parcels are immediately restored to the estate of Beatrice Ellison and distributed per the valid revocable trust executed 3 weeks prior to decedent's death, sole beneficiary Sawyer Ellison. He signed the order with a flourish. Further, pursuant to Florida Statute 825.103 and related provisions, the clerk will transmit the entire record, including all exhibits, to the state attorney for immediate criminal investigation into elder financial exploitation, forgery, and conspiracy. Court stands in recess. The gavel cracked like a rifle shot. Cole lunged for his lawyer, face purple. Pamela's tears switched off the second the cameras did. Douglas just sat there staring at the table, finally understanding the money was gone for good. I stayed on my feet while the room emptied, feeling the weight of every mansion settle back onto my shoulders where it belonged. Justice didn't feel sweet. It felt like oxygen after nearly a year underwater. Cole stood in the federal courtroom in Fort Lauderdale wearing an orange jumpsuit that swallowed his shoulders. The judge read the sentence without drama. 48 months at FCI Miami, followed by 3 years supervised release and a restitution order of $20 million joint and several. He had to liquidate everything: the Porsche, the South Beach condo, the offshore accounts he thought nobody could find. The auction notices ran in the Miami Herald for weeks. Douglas and Pamela fared worse in the civil case. The jury came back in under 2 hours with a verdict that stripped them of the Coral Gables mansion, the Mercedes, even Pamela's jewelry collection. Chapter 7. Bankruptcy followed 6 weeks later. Last I heard, they were renting a 2-bedroom in Hialeah, arguing over who forgot to pay the electric bill. I sold the Fisher Island property, the one they'd tried hardest to steal, and used every cent to create the Beatrice Ellison Coast Guard Family Scholarship Fund. First round of awards went out last spring. 20 kids of enlisted sailors and aviators who never thought college was possible. Their thank you letters are framed in my office now, right above the desk that used to be hers. The other 4 houses still sit exactly where they've always sat. I kept the long-term tenants at the same rates Beatrice charged 20 years ago. Some of them have been there since I was learning to body surf. They send Christmas cards with pictures of their grandkids swimming in the same pools I grew up in. I blocked every number that ever belonged to Douglas, Pamela, or Cole. No angry emails, no birthday texts. No, let's put this behind us, please. I didn't answer the one letter Cole sent from prison. I didn't need to. Some doors aren't meant to stay open. On clear nights, I take the elevator to the roof of the Key Biscayne penthouse, the one she always called our sky house. The city glitters below like scattered diamonds on black velvet. The Atlantic breathes slow and steady beyond the dunes. I think about the girl who used to fly rescue swimmers into 60-foot seas, who thought family meant forever, no matter what. That girl learned the hardest truth you can learn: blood isn't always thicker than greed. Some relationships are born broken. Trying to fix them only cuts you deeper. Cutting them out entirely, that's not cold. That's survival. And if you're reading this, if you're sitting there right now wondering whether you should keep giving one more chance to the people who keep taking pieces of you, listen to someone who's already bled for it. You don't owe your future to someone else's past crimes. You don't owe forgiveness to people who never asked for it. You owe yourself the same fierce loyalty Beatrice showed me, the kind that says, "This far, no further." I won back 5 houses and $42 million. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was the morning I woke up and realized I could breathe without waiting for the next betrayal. That's the inheritance worth fighting for. So fight clean. Fight smart. And when you win, don't look back. Because the view forward is finally completely, undeniably yours.